Well, again, my name is Stephen Chappay. I'm with Department of Natural Resources. I appreciate you guys being here today. We'll just do a couple quick introductions here. So again, my name is Stephen Chappay. I was the project manager from the DNR side of things on this project for Green Mountain, Box Butte County. Ryan, introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Ryan Stasny. I'm with Nebraska DNR. I'm a GIS technician. I did some reviews of some of the different phases of this project, so. Yeah.
I'm one of the outreach coordinators we have I mostly work with communities and answering any questions they have, updating the ordinances, a lot of the variety of things. So.
Yeah, we have Brock Remus and Jason Schneider. Brock just typed in the chat. So Brock Remus from FEMA Region 7. He is the program manager. And he said he can hear us, so that's good.
Brad Cusack, I'm the Community Development Director for the City of Alliance, also our floodplain administrator.
I'm Shelby Pitt. I'm the city clerk for the City of Alliance and then manage our insurance.
I think Jason was gonna try to, yeah. So Jason Schneider from Stantec is on the online meeting as well.
So Stantec did a lot of the engineering for this project. We did the reviews for it. So the purpose of this meeting is we're off the line. We have data to share with you essentially to get your feedback and review. So that's really the crux of what we want to do here. And I'll kind of try to go through these slides fairly quickly so we can spend most of the time just looking at the maps and seeing your different areas of interest that you have. So real quickly, why we do this work, we want to protect lives and property, areas that are at risk, right? So we know there's history of flooding from back in 1935 along the Republican with some historic flooding. More in our backyard in the 50s. This is neighbor Lincoln. The Missouri River in 2011 and 2019 has historic flooding. 2019 wasn't just the Missouri River either. It's different. You guys are probably getting a snowstorm out here while we were all flooding out east during that event. So I did for fun just find some clippings from the Bisbee Daily Review from all names back in the 20s. Just flooding that was occurring in the northwest part of the state here. So we know floods happen. We really want to just protect those areas that are most vulnerable to that. And why we need to update your flood maps. Box Butte County hasn't been updated at the engineering side since the 70s. So these are some of the oldest maps, the flooding that we have in the state. They were adopted as flood insurance rate maps in the 80s, but the data didn't change. They just got adopted for flood insurance rate purposes. So as you probably are aware, the flood maps are currently in paper formats. You have to go to those actual paper maps ready for regulatory, which I'm sure is a huge pain. These new maps are digital. They're going to it's writing each year. You get a much more accurate reading for individual properties. You can actually use our interactive map as the regulatory source. You don't have to go back to those big maps. The new maps will determine where insurance is required, where there are federally backed mortgages, and it will provide the basis for updating flood prevention ordinance, which is really your main thing you use to work with reducing that flood risk. So where we want to go today, we just want to, like I said, we want to review those maps, help you identify those areas that that models have the highest risk. We also have some additional flood risk data that's not regulatory. So something we do with all of our new projects, which includes like depth grids and percent chance grids, which gives you a more detailed look at where your risk is. So just because someone's in the floodplain versus out, their risk may be slightly varied versus someone that's on the edge versus in the middle. They have higher depth of flooding in that event versus so we have some of that data on here, right, on our interactive map that's doable that I can show you. And then we'll go over. Aaron will talk a little bit about reducing your flood risk and what mitigation efforts you can take, and then we'll wrap it up to just what the next steps in this project are. So where we've been, not a lot has been going on. We kicked off this project in 2020, so it's been a few years of us sort of just working in the background. The major engineering piece of it was completed in May of 2023. Then getting that on an actual boundary for another year, so floodplain mapping piece, taking that from our model data to put it on the map was completed this year in May. And then that additional data that I was talking about, those depth grids and percent chance grids that again aren't regulatory, we just finished those up this month. And all of this work was financially supported through FEMA grants. So here's just an image of where we're at. So again, kickoff meeting was in 2021. You didn't hear a lot from us during this phase. It's just kind of us working behind the scenes. For the past few years, you should have been getting quarterly updates from us of where we're at. But now we're at this focus review meeting. And from here on out, it's mostly more regulatory process before these maps. These are the community partners within the county. So you guys, the City of Alliance, Box Butte County, and the Village of Hemingford. For the three communities. Okay, I won't go too into the weeds on how the maps were developed. If you guys have specific questions, and then we have to talk to you about it more after the meeting. But I want to give just a quick overview because these maps will look different than what they do or what maybe you're used to seeing with your previous maps. There we go. So traditionally, we would do what would be called a 1D study. So essentially, we're looking at each individual stream segment by itself, doing a study of that, putting it all together. In the last 5 years or so, we've started utilizing it's called 2D modeling, which gives us more of a holistic approach. So in a general sense, what we're doing is we're looking at the whole county, we're dropping water on the whole county and letting them all around that flood through. So we're getting additional data, maybe in areas that we didn't study in a previous study. So it's more of a holistic approach. There's a lot less guesswork that goes into it. And you'll see that when we look at the maps. There's just a lot more data that we can see, and we take the time to kind of decide, what you can see. This boundary over here is a lot bigger than what we're showing over here, but a lot of this stuff isn't included in the final boundary. So that mapping piece is really determining what actually gets put on the map. That's not put from the model. So just this, 1 inch of flooding that's over this time. Over here showing. So other pieces of the regulatory process that are made are the flood insurance study. That's the report that goes along with it. It's just part of this. And then the flood insurance rate maps are the actual maps that are created with the floodplain boundaries on it. And you will get a physical copy, I believe, that you can keep on hand in the city. But again, you can use the digital product on and as the regulatory. So I really want to emphasize this piece of it. Now is really the time that you can provide feedback on the maps directly to us. We can have open communication about it, work on it. Once these maps get to what we consider preliminary phase, that becomes a lot more difficult. You essentially would have to provide an engineering study to disprove the data that we have now. So I really want to hammer this home because we always get to a point in the project where it's too late. So realizing there's something over here. We did a study to mitigate this, but it's not reflected in the notes, and it's too late for us to address it. So you have to go through either an appeal or you have to do studies and a lot of that fix. So please review the maps. You'll be getting a letter from FEMA with an official 30-day period to review them. Should be getting that, I believe, this week, if not early next. And again, I touched on this a bit earlier, but we have some additional data other than just the regulatory piece, which are the flood depth grids, percent annual chance grids. So percent annual chance is just in any given year, what's the chance I can see water at my property? Is it a 1% any given year, or is it a 30% that I can see water? And then we also have percent 30-year chance grids. That's the likelihood I could see water over a 30-year or a typical mortgage. So it gives property owners a little more information when they're buying a property or selling a property as to what that risk is over a 30-year period. This is just a snapshot of what it looks like on the map. We can pull it up as well. But again, just because someone's in the floodplain doesn't mean they have the same risk as someone. Their neighbor would get a little bit further analysis as to what that actual risk is for an individual property. So again, I mentioned reviewing the maps, things to look for when you're reviewing it, areas where you've seen significant flooding, properties that have had repeated flooding. The elevation data that we used for this study, most of it was from 2017. So if there's any development since 2017, that elevation data wouldn't be reflected in this project. So if you have anything like that, please provide it to us and we can incorporate it now. If you have any new developments planned, areas where you've done mitigation projects, or any areas that you would like to prioritize addressing flooding issues. So I'm zoomed in here on city lines, since that's what we have for today. So the blue boundary, that's the 1%. This is what I should put this off, but this is the layer I have turned on right now. It's called the flood awareness area. This is the area from the project that we want you to review. This is what we're planning to carry forward as far as the regulatory maps go. And then we also have the effective paper map in here for comparison. So if there's specific locations you're listening to, we can do that as well. And then just looking at the what's in here, what we do that. There is a big piece here that wasn't in the paper map previously. So the river structure that was underneath through this railroad here. But one thing to point out is with this study, we're not taking structure data into account. So there's a large structure that's the portion of the town that data was reflected in the maps. Without any data related to, I don't know what this. We don't have a lot of information about how the paper maps are made since the 70s. So that.
Yeah, that was left out of the floodplain because the ditch, the city did drainage ditch goes underground at that point. So underground culvert. I think there's 2 8x3 culverts.
Okay.
Yeah, so it doesn't flood there.
Okay.
Until you get south of 2nd Street.
Yeah, if there's information you can provide.
Yeah.
It's in
Yeah, I can give you that infrastructure data.
So we can look at that for sure.
That would add a lot of people to the floodplain.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not guaranteeing that that's, we'd have to look at it essentially, and we can have a communication about that and what that would do. But again, it's a zone A study, which typically doesn't take those structures into account. But we can certainly look at it. So that was the main. I knew this was kind of going to be a point of conversation. So I'm going to talk about that.
Yeah, that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
They're going to be happy.
But otherwise, it is generally a little bit wider through here. You can kind of see, so the orange is not regulatory. Put that out there. So Alliance is it's a little interesting. So for the 100-year floodplain, what our model is showing is a lot of, this is sort of the main path of water coming through town, but there is a lot that spills through the streets and kind of follows the grid of the street. So what we did is we made this sort of a different, it's still the 1% floodplain. So in a 100-year event, we would expect those streets to get flooded, but the depths are so small that we can map it as what we call Zone X, which doesn't have a regulatory purchase requirement. It's essentially saying that, yes, there's flooding in the 100-year, but it's all averages out to less than 1 foot of depth. So we have 2 different zones through here that symbolize the same, but it's less than 1 foot of depth, or it's the 500-year floodplain would be slightly larger. And you can see there's going to be a lot more. I kind of talked about the multiple approach, but there is other data in places that the paper maps didn't cover previously. Really, please take the time to get this on your own. And then there's a comment guy right here. We turn on this button and down here. There's a couple comments in here still from the previous kickoff meeting that we had some people review some of the data if there's any concerned areas. There's some information here on the fills. But if you turn this on, there's a floodplain boundary comments right here. So this is the easiest way to repeat them out. So when you turn that layer on, under this floodplain boundary where you can draw a shape. So make sure it's working. So click the finish it. You hit submit, it'll just ask for your information here. Your contact information, and then you can put your comments in the box at the bottom and hit submit. So that's the easiest way to make comments. If you don't know how to get here or forget, just give us a call. Or if you want to just work with us directly over the phone or have a Zoom meeting, we can do that too. So whatever's easiest for you. If you leave a comment here, get back to the phone call or at least you depending on what the comment is. So that's the main piece I want you to take away. This whole thing down here, review comment, leave comments there. I touched on also our flood risk products. So if you go to this little locator icon here, that's where those are located. So if you want more detail other than just the boundaries themselves. Might take a second, but here you go. You can see our depth grids on here. You can click around to see what that depth would be. So this location 3 feet, but again, like I talked about, this flooding that's coming to the streets. Right, half a foot. Less than half a foot. So it's really shallow flooding though. That's what we're seeing on all. And then likewise, we have the depth grid for the 500-year event as well, which will look similar, and then we have percent chance versus the percent 30 year. So the chance you could see flooding at an individual location over the span of 50 years. Here. With around 30, 50. This paints the picture that flood risk is equal for everyone, right? Gives you a little bit more granular look at what that risk actually is.
I'm very much, like I said before, I'm with the outreach coordinators for our outreach team. Pretty much, we're a team of, I think, 5 now. We just got a couple new hires, which is really nice. And so it's really important to do what you can to reduce flood risk in your community because, one, it protects life and property, and it allows you to be eligible for grants, whether it's recovery grants or mitigation grants. And so what we really been hit home is floods are a known hazard in the state. You know, in a 30-year mortgage, we use the term, 100-year flood or 1% annual chance, but over the lifetime of 30 years, a home or a property in the 1% annual chance flood hazard area actually has a 26% chance of flooding, so it's significantly higher than just 1%. And climate models are showing that storms and flood events are getting worse in the state and they're decreasing in predictability. So doing what you can to mitigate risk is really important. And yeah, like we said, reducing your flood risk, whether it's through structural mitigation or open space, that kind of thing, it decreases the cost of insurance for property owners in the community. It safeguards lives, properties, it helps maintain a quality of life, and it improves your community's resilience. And resiliency is really important because the faster you can recover from a disaster in the community, the more likely your community is to survive in the long term, which is really important. And we will work with you to build your community's flood resiliency. We have a lot of resources available for you, and if any questions or concerns, reach out and point you in the right direction if we don't have the answers. There are a whole host of ways you can mitigate your flood risk. You know, on screen, we've got prevention, public information, property protection. Some of these go hand in hand. But a big one obviously is prevention, and this is where your planning and zoning ordinances come into play because it's kind of it's the backbone of your floodplain management program. It gives you the authority to regulate the area. Public information, this is where the maps come in. You know, it's being able to show your community members where your floodplain is and where your high risk areas are. And one thing that we recommend is having the state disclosure. So if people want to buy or sell property in floodplain, the real estate company and agent should know and be aware, tell potential buyers of their risk. Property protection, this goes in, they kind of go hand in hand with natural resource protection for a couple of these, but property acquisition and restoring floodplains and wetlands back to their natural state is really, really helpful. And on property protection, elevation is a big one. It's one of the main mitigation strategies for buildings and structures in the floodplain. And working with your emergency management and emergency managers, working on warning and response procedures and protecting your critical facilities, so hospitals, your schools, your fire stations, and then your standard structural projects. So they would be reservoirs, dams, culverts, and stuff like that. And we have a state flood hazard mitigation plan available. The Department of Natural Resources put this out in 2022, and it has a whole host of data and resources and funding opportunities listed that you can incorporate in local hazard mitigation plans. And it's pre-use this data to incorporate in a local plan. It's on our website as well. And now we'll go a little more specific with some of the solutions that we really recommend, and that's nature-based solutions. So this is working with nature, obviously, to mitigate rather than more traditional, gray structural structure. So this example here is a grass waterway, and it just shows, the importance of having, the natural state of the grassland in between your fields to reduce runoff and erosion in times of high water. These are a couple more local, like city examples, so like bioswales and rain barrels. They can help catch some of the rainwater and reduce the amount that's running down your roads and streets, and reduces the load on your local stormwater management infrastructure. And if you're interested in learning more about nature-based solutions, FEMA has guidance, and this is their most recent version of their nature-based solutions document. I think we have this on our website as well. If not, I can find it for you. Your local floodplain management ordinance. We're really hitting this hard. It's important to have a local floodplain management ordinance that includes the most recent state and federal minimum standards. Our model ordinance has all of these state and federal minimum standards within it, as well as a lot of optional language that you can choose to include. So things like accessory structure language, agricultural structure language, where it allows property owners to have a little bit more flexibility when it comes to building in the floodplain. And we're currently working on a major overhaul of our model ordinance. I don't know if you can tell, but it's from 2017. This is the last major one we did. And so it's been a few years. And we just want to, fix some things with it. And we're expecting to have a new version of our model ordinance out by spring of 2025. But if you're interested in updating your floodplain management ordinance, talk to me or anyone on the outreach team. We'll have contact information at the end, but when the new maps come out, you'll need to update your ordinance anyway to adopt the new panels. And so having something now up to date would make that process in a couple of years for you to see. we've talked a little bit about critical facilities, but these are super important to the workings of your community, so safeguarding them from flood risk is important. And there's grant funding available to add safeguards, backup generators, elevating there's infrastructure available. And then flood insurance. Flood insurance, of course, is super important. It's also required for property owners if they have a federally backed mortgage. The average premium in Nebraska goes out to be about $83 a month, which it's variable depending on a lot of different things. FEMA's got their new risk rating tool, and that really narrows down what your price would be depending on a lot of different things. And one benefit of being in the National Flood Insurance Program and having a flood insurance policy is increased cost of compliance coverage. And so if you have a home or structure that's currently not compliant with the local floodplain management ordinance, and it's damaged by flooding, increased cost of compliance grants up to $30,000 to help bring the structure into compliance with the ordinance. So that could be elevation, relocation, demolition, whatever is the best fit for that particular structure. And we have a lot of little informational handouts and such on our insurance page on the web link below. So feel free to check that out. And if you have any questions, obviously reach out. Home elevation, that's a big one that is probably the most common mitigation effort that we see communities do, and it can be done through elevating on posts like you see on the top two photos, or you can build on top of the garage. That's an option, and it allows the property owner to have usable space underneath the home so they can use the garage for its intended purpose, but still have their living space elevated above flood elevation. And lastly, buyouts and relocation. So this one goes in with the natural resources protection mitigation effort, and that's restoring your floodplains to be a floodplain. And Beatrice is actually a really good example of this. So they had a lot of homes and structures in the floodplain, and since the 70s, they've been working on buying out those properties and converting it into green space and recreational areas for the city. And this effort was particularly highlighted in 2015 when they had another flood that I believe was about the third largest on record. And they estimate that they saved about $13 million total from just this buyout project of removing homes and structures in floodplain. So buyouts and relocations are a very helpful tool if you can go that route. And there's a lot of funding opportunities. So here's just a list of some of the examples that you can apply for federal grants or state grants. And we recommend talking to your state hazard mitigation officer at the Nebraska Emergency Management Agency or a FEMA regional office, or you can talk to us at the Department of Natural Resources. We can provide more information or point you in the right direction. And one big thing that's not shown on screen is the state of Nebraska has actually qualified for FMA Swift Current funding, about $10 million, I believe. And this funding can help with mitigation projects and bringing substantially damaged structures into compliance with your local floodplain improvements. And lastly, if you have any projects in mind any mitigation projects in mind that you have been wanting to get off the ground but don't know how to particularly fund or start, talk to us. We can point you in the right direction to apply for grants or talk to someone who knows that process.
So we'll wrap it up here. I just want to talk about sort of what's next with the project. So from the DNR's perspective, mentioned this before, but you should be getting a letter from FEMA that officially opens that 30-day comment period on the maps. We're not going to be super strict on that 30-day period, so if it's 30, it's your day after that, and they still contact us and work with us. But we just have to have that official comment period from FEMA there. But don't stress out if you're past that. We do at some point have to cut it off, so we're expecting to start working on developing the premium grant products at the end of this year or the start of next year. So that will kind of be the healthy point, part of when we'll have to transition these from being draft maps to their code and varied phase. This is sort of where we pass the baton back to FEMA as well. And their production and technical services team kind of takes it over and works through the regulatory process to make these maps become effective. So there'll be appeals processes and other stages in the project that you'll get notifications from FEMA on regarding that. There'll be another meeting down the line with the officials after the months go. And then we would anticipate that somewhere, but a pretty broad range in here, but 2026, 2027 would be their guess that these maps are going to be effective. And then next steps for you, the big one that I've already mentioned a few times, but please review the floodplain boundary maps, put 100 comments on the map that we care, and we can work together and figure it out, see what we're seeing. If there's anything mitigation related, talk to Erin and her team. There's areas you know you have issues and need grant funding or want to know what money is available to help with any sort of mitigation efforts, talk to our team. We can help with that with that as well. So again, please review the maps, take time to go through them. And let us know if there's development that's been done, areas that are of concern, areas that you've already done some mitigation and that covered information that we said you have. That. And then lastly, this is just our contact information. So I have myself, Ryan, and Aaron's contact information on here. And then a couple other people from our team, you probably received correspondence from Michelle York about this meeting. She's really great. If you don't know who to talk to Michelle and she'll direct you. And then Elijah Kaufman, who works closely with Aaron. He's our state NFIP coordinator. He's a good contact to have as well. And then Brock Green, this is on the call with us today as well. He's sort of our lead actually in our region set. So again, contact with you, your guy.